Welcome into Green Dot Daily. We are Action Network's daily sports betting show. I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen. We're here every weekday beginning at noon Eastern, streaming live in the Action Network app. We also come to you from the Action Network YouTube channel. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get first bet insurance up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. Here's what we have coming up on this Tuesday edition. With college football now in the rearview mirror, we turn our attention to college basketball. We're really going to sink our teeth into conference play with Jim Root of the Three-Man Weave. He joins us with some big picture thoughts, get you caught up to speed, what's happening in college hoops, and a couple of plays he likes for tonight. In the NBA, the Buckets pod weighs in. They've got a couple of plays, and then Michael Leboff will join the show. He has not one, but two underdog money line plays in the NHL that he likes for tonight. But we begin the show with Super Wild Card Weekend. We welcome in the duo from the Favorites podcast, Chad Millman, Simon Hunter. They have been studying the lines, looking into all of these games. We have 6, 2 on Saturday, 3 Sunday, and the one game on Monday night. Fellas, thanks for stopping by. It feels like it's been a while since we've done this here on the show because of just holidays and scheduling. So good to have the band back together on Green Dot Daily. Chad, we'll start with you. What is a game that jumps out to you for this coming weekend, and what's a play you like?
Well, I think we need to talk a little bit about the Ravens and the Bengals. There's a lot that's still up in the air with that game because we don't know the quarterback situation for the Ravens yet. These two teams just played, and it's one of those games, we talked about it before we all came on the show, and I know Simon's going to talk a little bit about it from a handicapping perspective, that is very tricky for professional bettors right now. But look at the Ravens from a defensive perspective. Since Roquan Smith joined this team on Halloween weekend, it's been one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL. 7-2 to the unders. Their DVOA across the board, rushing and passing, has improved. One of the best scoring defenses just behind San Francisco in that window. And it's not just what Roquan Smith has done to solidify that defense and stabilize that defense. He's allowed Patrick Queen to become more of a playmaker, and the duo together lead the league in pressures, QB pressures, since he joined the team. So it's a really tricky matchup, I think. I don't think we get a good sense of how we want to handicap that game just from what happened this past weekend.
Yeah, John Harbaugh was outspoken yesterday that Lamar Jackson wants to play, but he has yet to make a decision, and they haven't had Lamar back out on the practice field just yet. So we'll keep our eyes glued to the news as it pertains to the Ravens and their star quarterback. Simon, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're ready to jump on Baltimore, though, regardless of the news.
Yeah, I'm taking a stance here on Baltimore, just the fact it's a good number. I think 6.5 in a matchup, even without knowing what Lamar is going to be, I still think you're getting a great number in a matchup between two divisional foes. Like, if this was not a team that knows this team as well as they do, they see the Bengals twice a year. They know Joe Burrow pretty well. I know Joe's had their number these last couple of years, but that's more on the offensive side of Lamar just hasn't been able to keep up with them. But defensively, I do agree with Chad. I think that's the biggest thing here is the Bengals have lost a couple key guys on their offensive line these last couple of weeks. And do I think the Bengals are still going to win this game? I do. But the books are kind of sucking people in here. Like the 6.5, that's going to be the highest bet numbers right now. The fact that it's still under 7, the public has just been hitting that all week, these last two days. So the fact that it hasn't moved to 7, I've seen a couple of books drop to 6 and it goes back up to 6.5. It feels like that's where they want it to be. That's where the pros think the value is. That's where the public is kind of fine taking it. So looking at this number, I just grabbed it now in case it is the fact that it's not going to be Lamar. Maybe it bumps up to 7.5. Who knows where it's going to go? I could be able to take another position on them. If it is Lamar, I could see it dropping down. And it's not even the biggest reason Lamar betting this number. I do think it is one of those where I see the Bengals winning, but I see them kind of going back to what they were last year when they had a bad offensive line. They won games, but it was close, drag it out, 3-point wins. And that's what I expect this to be. I think a 6.5, that's a key number that like we see all the time. These games land on 6. That's why I'm taking the value rate. It's one of those games where it's going to be pros versus the Joes. Like the public, every teaser, every money line parlay, we already know what it's going to be. It's going to be the 2 seeds. People are going to have the 49ers. They're going to have the Bills. and the team they're going to throw in there is what they think is free money in Cincy here. So we see it time and time again. These people love these kind of numbers. So the fact that it is 6.5 is such a key number, I just have to take it as we sit here on Tuesday.
Is there a scenario you see if Jackson gets ruled in later this week that you come back on the other side and take the Bengals and meet and try to get a middle?
No, because I can't see it dropping far enough down. I just don't see enough movement where Lamar hasn't played in 2 months. Like, that's the thing where it's like a healthy Lamar, if it was a week out, maybe this would move the number. The fact that he hasn't played and he's getting dropped right into the playoffs, and we know Lamar's record in the playoffs, it's just not that good. It's not going to do enough for the public or pros to really move this number. I think this number right here is the book saying, I think Lamar is going to play. That's what they're saying. And we'll know today. He'll either practice today or tomorrow. And if he doesn't, highly, highly, highly unlikely Harbaugh is going to let him just play with no practice and just one walkthrough. So that's what you're looking for. These next 2 days, you need to see Lamar practice.
Okay. Very good. Good stuff. Yeah. And the other thing too with Lamar, just from a narrative standpoint with the contract pending or the is free agency coming up, this feels like a lose-lose for Lamar Jackson. In my opinion, you mentioned the playoff record. He goes out there and plays. The Ravens have an out if he doesn't play well. Look, see, the playoff Lamar Jackson thing is real. We can't run the risk of paying him and giving him a lucrative contract. So I wonder if that creeps in the head of Lamar Jackson, his camp as well, putting him back out there after not playing for 2 months.
Well, it shouldn't, because I think any Jets owner, any of these teams are going to be like, Lamar, come here. We'll give you all that guaranteed money you want. They just, it's an arms race. They don't care. So to me, Lamar's a gamer. If he can play, he's going to play.
This he's getting $150 million minimum, no matter where he goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I meant more so his status with the Baltimore Ravens. You follow? Like,
yeah. I like, if I'm Lamar and I can play, I want to play. I'm not worried about whether it's the Ravens or anybody else. Like, if the Ravens don't want to give him the money, there's going to be a lot of other teams that are in the market for a quarterback that are going to give Lamar Jackson the money. And he'll be fine leaving the Ravens because he'll be getting the money.
Okay. Fair enough. Points well taken. Moving on to picks. So we wanted to break this one down because the news is very worthy of discussing and news to monitor. And as we come to find out, the news may not mean all that much because, as Simon said, the line being at 6.5, it's probably baked in that Lamar Jackson is playing. So we'll find out if he practices this week. Chad, we'll go to you, though. You're looking to Monday night, and you're in on Mr. Tom Brady.
Yeah, I am. It was the first game that I bet. And honestly, when I was looking at the board, it was just the game where I thought, I probably like the Bucs. I think this line is going to move. We've seen in the past 24, 48 hours, money coming in. It is headed towards Bucs plus 2.5. I wanted to get the 3. So for starters, I'm just playing the number. But then you're also telling me I can have Tom Brady, who, by the way, had an incredible season and finished the season with his best game of the year and a full complement of healthy receivers in week 17. I'm not talking about week 18 when he sat out and a lot of the players sat out. And they're going against Mike McCarthy, who, look, he's had tremendous success regular season, year after year after year, and tremendous failure postseason, year after year after year. We just have to look at last year, how the season ended for the Cowboys in disarray when they were trying to snap a ball and look like they didn't know what they were doing, what the situation is strategically, what they needed to do. That's not an isolated incident. So now we got Mike McCarthy, he's not very good in these situations. He's not a good in-game tactical coach. And then look at what they've done the past few weeks. Sam Howell beat him up. Josh Dobbs played much better than I think anyone expected, not even being on the roster 8 days prior. Gardner Minshew nearly beat them, was up by 10 twice in that game against the Cowboys and the Eagles. So I like the matchup for the Bucs, especially when Dak Prescott has thrown picks in 7 straight games against a pass defense that is top 10 in yards allowed, top 10 in yards per attempt, top 10 in sacks. Like, this is a defense that can get after it. So I like the matchup too.
It's a bad taste in your mouth if you like the Cowboys, or if you're a Cowboys backer or Cowboys fan, which I know there are some folks on this call behind the scenes that are in that particular seat. But yeah, they're not playing well going in. And for Tampa, if they utilize Chris Godwin in the slot, that is a weakness of that Dallas defense. As good as they were early in the year and midway through the year, They've dropped off a bit lately. That secondary, in terms of defending the slot receiver, has not been great. The line now at BetMGM is 2.5. So if you can get a 3, go find yourself a 3. But caution with the number dropping. Bucks plus 2.5 now. Simon, what do you like for the weekend? What's a game that you're kind of in on now to bet now?
I mean, Chad hit it on the head where it's another home dog. It's a number I blindly knew I was going to bet the Jaguars, but luckily the numbers back it up where it's a good matchup for them offensively. Doug Peterson against these kind of defenses that really can't stop the run. That's what he likes. He likes to run the ball. We saw it his time with the Eagles. Everything was set up off that RPOs of running the ball. I see exactly this matchup. That's what he's going to do with it, where he's just going to get it into ETN's hands, and that's not working. He's going to do the quick passes to Christian Kirk. Both things that's really bad for this Chargers defense. It's things they've struggled against. So I get the hype for Herbert. I mean, he's a great player. This is a great step for him to make the playoffs, be a high seed like this. But it feels like the Jaguars just had a playoff game. They survived it. I mean, that Tennessee game, Vrabel, that's the gauntlet right there. That guy really gets his hands on it. He clamps down with that defense. They survived it somehow. I mean, you could say it's because they were playing up against a backup quarterback. To me, it was kind of a coming of age thing with Trevor Lawrence, where you needed to take that step. You needed to kind of get that playoff feel and understand how different it is, how faster it is. And he already had it, where Herbert really hasn't had that test yet. We saw him last year. His only real playoff game was against the Raiders. It was a do or die make the playoffs last year. They kind of choked. I mean, they went to overtime. They kind of let that game slip away. So coaching matchup-wise, I love this for Peterson. I feel like quarterbacks here, it's pretty even. Now you're taking away Mike Williams from this Chargers offense. That's a big hit to them. Like, we've seen that offense change with him being downfield. So the fact now the Chargers are down him, we know the Jags are just going to shift their defensive focus to Keenan Allen. That's a big deal for them going into this game. So I wanted to take the Chargers. I kind of thought this line would be closer to a pick. The fact that it's 1.5, 1 at most books, that's the value right now. You have to take the Jaguars here on the money line, or you can find the 1.5. I would just take the 1.5.
Well, Chad brought up coaching concerns with Mike McCarthy. You should be concerned late in the game if it's 3rd and 10 at their own 20 that Brandon Staley might decide to go for it. And that's exactly what happened in week 18 last year.
Yep.
Peterson in big spots too, right? We forget that he's reached a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. So
Nick Foles.
Yes.
And
And Nick Foles caught it. Tom Brady didn't, which bums me out all the time. Chad Millman, Simon Hunter, catch them every week. Favorites podcast. They'll be on AMP later today. Gentlemen, thanks so much for the time.
Good to see you.
Okay.
Despite being one of Cliff Kingsbury's most vocal critics here at Action Network, this is actually a very sad time for me as a gambler, now that Cliff Kingsbury is no longer employed as a head coach. A lot of people think gamblers are always on the lookout for winners. That's all we talk about. We want winners. Who has winners? Who's got the winners? And that's just not true. Winners aren't what we're looking for. Consistency is what we're all searching for. And there was no head coach who was a more consistent loser in the second half of every season he's ever been a head coach than Cliff Kingsbury. We had a lot of magic moments this year, and these last couple of seasons have been extremely gratifying for me personally. The rest of America finally caught up to what a complete charlatan and fake genius this guy truly is. It's incredible that it took people this long to realize that a nice head of hair and cool sunglasses aren't enough to win NFL games in the month of December. But I am heartbroken that we as a gambling community will now be deprived of this collective asset. And because of that, on behalf of everybody here that gambles, I do wish Cliff Kingsbury immediate successful employment at the pro or college level, because we need him back on those sidelines immediately. And I will put in my vote of confidence for him to get that job at any program or NFL team, just not one I root for.
Matt Mitchell, thank you very much. Cliff Kingsbury, formerly of Texas Tech. And, well, we turn our attention from college football to college basketball. Here are your latest national title odds. Houston is your favorite at plus 700. Kansas, UCLA, Arizona, Tennessee. Those are some usual suspects the last couple of years. Even Alabama. And then you see UConn at plus 1,400. The Huskies rolling in the Big East. They're getting some love. So we need to get caught up on the college basketball landscape. We welcome in Jim Root of Three Man Weave. He contributes to our basketball coverage, college basketball coverage at Action Network. College football's over. We need to get people caught up on what's happening. Couple of bullet points, Jim, that jump out to you from this season through the first week of January now.
Well, I think the biggest thing after what we saw last night with what Georgia did at TCU is that there's no Georgia. There's no totally dominant, going to run to the national title type of squad in college basketball this year. Everybody's got a loss already. There's no undefeateds left. Per the NCAA's David Warlock, this is the second fastest we've gotten to no undefeated since 1977. Basically tells you there isn't that team that just kind of is running through the season. Like you just mentioned with those odds, Houston's the favorite, but they're not that caliber. They lost at home already to Alabama. So it's not like they're invincible. UConn looked great early, but then they dropped some games in the Big East, same with Purdue and going into the Big Ten. So yeah, there's no true dominant team, which is going to make for a hopefully very entertaining postseason and maybe a little bit more competitive national title game. One other bullet point worth mentioning here, home dogs this year for bettors out there. They've been fantastic. 391 and 314 against the spread, just 55.5% betting blind home dogs. Don't even look at who it is. That's what it's been so far. Whether that continues into league play as the numbers kind of adjust, it's debatable. I wouldn't continue auto betting it, but if you find the right situation for home dogs, it has been a profitable situation this year. So as you're going through the handicapping and getting into the college hoops thing, just keep that in mind that home court has seen a little bit of a resurgence, especially for underdogs.
Plenty of those spots on tonight's slate, which we'll get into momentarily. We had Kai on last week. One of his picks was Georgia to beat Auburn at home. Georgia was a double-digit dog, and they won outright by 12. Let me ask you this before we get into the nitty-gritty of the games today. What do you think the committee's thinking with all of this parity? Like, we're getting there soon, man. We're 2 months away from this. What is there a theme from this season so far that you might look at and go, something? The committee's going to be looking at that this year because of so many teams that are on the same level.
Yeah, I think the top seeds are going to be really topsy-turvy for a while. It maybe Houston benefits from playing in the American, but if they drop a game or two, those are going to be quad 2, maybe even quad 3 games, depending on the ones they lose. So I think, in some years you'll have the same 4 teams in the 1 seed slots for most of February. But I think we'll see that shuffle constantly. Kansas is going to be in there. Tennessee is going to be up in there. Houston, Connecticut, Purdue, all kinds of teams are going to run through those top 4 slots. It's just going to kind of be what have you done for me lately is going to be the big thing up there. So we'll see how it pans out. I think Houston will probably get one, like I said, because I think their schedule benefits them. But it's not like there's a lock. Gonzaga in one of the 1 seeds, and the Big 12 champ's going to be going through a gauntlet, probably dropping some games. So we'll see how it pans out there. I think we won't have that same kind of consistency atop the projected brackets.
Interesting. Yeah, the what have you done for me lately theme is definitely something that happens every year. But to your point, when you have big wins, or like if you're a UConn and you slide a bit in the Big East, do people just forget how you did against teams early in the year in those pre-holiday or holiday tournaments? Curious. Or pre-conference game tournaments. So I'm curious. All right, let's move on to UNC and UVA. That's a good matchup in the ACC. You have an extensive preview of this game. What are your thoughts on it?
Man, there's a lot of directions to go in. I think the first thing that really jumped out to me as I kind of dove into this matchup is Virginia, who, started really well, had that good performance out in Vegas where people are like, oh yeah, this is Virginia's back, top 5, top 10, right? They've been terrific. They're 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 games. They have really struggled. I think their value got kind of overinflated by where Ken Pom had them in the preseason, and that was like confirmation bias with the early performances. But they have the only game they covered was a home date with Georgia Tech. Everything else, they have struggled to match expectations. So here, laying 4.5, 5 at home against UNC, it could be dicey to cover. The one thing that's big for them is that Caden Shedrick has emerged as like a true rim dominant force. He's a massive shot blocker, great rebounder. You need that against Baycott, because if Baycott can have his way with you on the glass, that gives UNC an easy route to points, sustainable on the offensive glass. I think Shedrick's going to play a huge part here. And then the other end, UNC's defense has been a bit of a flaw. And especially like their patience with going around screens and fighting through some of that off-ball stuff has been a bit of a bugaboo. And that's all Virginia does. Like 28-second possessions with all kinds of motion off the ball. If you're not disciplined enough to stick with that and guard that all through the shot clock, you're going to give up easy buckets late. And that's the concern with UNC. Even if it looks good the first 10 minutes, I think they kind of wear down. So despite that UVA 1-9 record over the last 10 games, I'm kind of leaning towards the Cavaliers here. I haven't bet it yet, though.
So far, UNC has played 2 conference road games, and they lost to Virginia Tech by 8 and lost to Pittsburgh in a nail-biter. So they've yet to win on the road. And that's back to what we've talked about with them. When the committee's looking, you got to get some true road wins, especially in conference play. And you do. So that's a big game on the slate, but you do have a best bet that's not in the ACC. You're going to go to the Big 12.
Yeah, they didn't have any extra board games for me today. There's only one, I think. So I had to go to a more premium stage here with Kansas back home hosting Oklahoma here. Kansas taking a little bit of money. This has been bet up from 9.5 to 10.5, but I'm still going to ride with the Jayhawks here. They're back home after winning 2 tough road games at West Virginia and Texas Tech. Oklahoma has been solid. They just got an OT win, though, against Texas Tech. There could be a little bit of a hangover effect to that going into the fog. And I just don't like the matchup for the Sooners. They're usually a very well-prepared team under Porter Moser, but I don't think they can individually guard the wings that Kansas has. Jalen Hill's like the only 6'5" to 6'7" wing that they have, and there's McCullough, Grady Dick, and Jalen Wilson on the other side. I think that's going to be tough. Porter Moser teams typically known for going under screens, especially ball screens, and kind of forcing you into isolation situations. Kansas can handle that. They've got a bunch of guys that can score an ISO, especially against the defenders that Oklahoma throws out there. So even laying 10.5, big number for a conference game. I get that, but I think the Jayhawks can get it done and get away from the Sooners, hopefully early and often. I think first half might be worth a look too, just in case the Sooners, claw back in the second half. But I think Kansas is worth a look today.
Yeah, I gave that some thought as well. When you lay those double-digit point totals, do you go to a first half? But those can be dicey too, because you're just banking on a really good start to that under 16 media timeout. Yeah. Okay, well, for the first time in weeks, when we have a member of the 3-man weave crew on, we're not talking Missouri. So we'll see how they do later this week. Jim Root, 3-man weave, contributor at Action Network. Thanks for stopping by Green Dot Daily.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Okay, good stuff in the college hoop world. Let's head to the NBA. Some games that we are targeting in terms of games that stand out to us. We've got a big total between the Suns and Warriors, 229.5. Same total for Trailblazers and Magic. Clippers short favorites at home against the Mavs. And the Cavaliers, one of those earlier games, they're laying 2.5 against the Utah Jazz. How about the Buckets pod? What do they think about tonight's games?
Yeah, I love this spot here for the Portland Trailblazers back home. They're going to be playing the Orlando Magic. Magic on a second night of a back-to-back, third game in 4 days. I like the Blazers minus 7.5. It's not only a good spot from a travel or a rest advantage perspective, but Portland's been playing terrible, man. They've lost 4 out of the last 5, including their game on Sunday against the Toronto Raptors. They're shooting terribly. Last 3 games, 44%, 40%, and 44%. We expect a regression back to the mean there. They've also only hit 9 threes in each of the last 3 games. We expect that to get regressed back up to the teens as well. So I think playing a soft defense like Orlando, especially on the third game in 4 nights, I think the Blazers are going to come out hot. If I was as good, as sharp as Jay, I would also be on the first half here too. But I'm just going to go and roll with the full game. I think that's the safest play.
Yeah, I'm rocking with the Warriors, man. I want to find some type of way to get on the Warriors. They have lost the last 3 versus the Suns. I'm going to rock with the Warriors in the first half versus the Phoenix Suns. This is more about the Suns, man. This team is on a slide right now. 1-9 straight up last 10 games. The Phoenix Suns, right? At one point, they were number 1 seed in the West. They've lost 6 straight games. Just really in a tailspin, man. If you look at the injury report as well, I know that this line is pretty high, but you look at the injury report, I'm not not sure who's going to be scoring for the Suns. If Paul and Campaign are out, who's going to play point guard in this one, man? We know that the Warriors, they can score in bunches. I like the Warriors here to come out and smack these Suns up. They have triple revenge. And when you have the Warriors as well coming, this is their 7th straight game of a home stand as well. So 7 straight home game, coming off 2 straight losses, and with triple revenge versus the Suns. You got to find some type of way to hop on the Warriors here. It's also the last game before they head out on the road as well. But with that triple revenge and double revenge from this year, I like the Warriors in this one. I might even get their full game as well. I think this could be a trifecta spot. Smack City spot by the Warriors.
Good stuff from the Buckets crew. On to the NHL. We've got 10 games total on the slate. Here are some of those games on your screen now. Tampa, big favorite tonight at home. That's a number that jumps out to me. And then we have a bunch of totals sitting at 6 for tonight's slate. And here to talk some hockey with us on Green Dot Daily, Michael Lieboff. You can find him in the Action app, and your typical bread and butter as it pertains to betting on the National Hockey League is you like to turn to underdogs. And you're on 2 tonight. We'll start with Minnesota. You like their chances tonight against the Rangers. Why?
Yeah, let's not scare everybody off the show just yet. Minnesota is a really good 5-on-5 team, especially defensively. No team does a better job at preventing high danger scoring chances than the Wild have since December 1st. And they're going up against the Rangers team that, just like they did last year, is not pushing play in the right direction at 5-on-5. They're not generating a lot of scoring chances. Only the Chicago Blackhawks have generated fewer expected goals at 5-on-5 than the Rangers have since December 1st. The Rangers don't really need to tilt the ice to get results. They've got a great power play. They've got really good playmaking talent and some elite players at the top of their roster. And of course, they've got the goalie. But against a team like the Wild, who should have the majority of the puck, they just know how to manage games and manage the puck. It's a little dangerous to lay this kind of juice with the Rangers. So if the power play maybe has an off night, if Shesterkin isn't great, and perhaps the Wild get good goaltending out of Gustafsson, they have every bit of a chance to turn this into a coin flip. So Minnesota's a really strong team, just like the Rangers have had a really good 6-week stretch here. I believe they're 12-5-3 over their last 20 or so. And as good as the Rangers have been, this is the time to sell high on a team that just generally doesn't play all that well at 5-on-5.
And they've been a mediocre home team, 9-7-4 at home this season. Goal differential overall plus 21. And they've been okay, decent their last 10 games. How about now this next one? You're really diving in here, and this is a big money line underdog.
Yeah, the Columbus Blue Jackets are plus 330 in Tampa, and everything's going to tell you just to bet Tampa in this one, but the price is just so big. And the Blue Jackets, even though they lost over on Sunday to the Capitals, they dominated that game, and that was against a really impressive Capitals team. They're red hot right now. Washington is. They've just surged up the Metro. They got 2 of their best players back in the lineup that night too. So this was a really tough game for Columbus to come in and stick around, and they deserved the win. They lost 1-0, but it was just, this team just doesn't have the talent, and some nights they might outplay a team, but they just might not be able to finish their chances. And that's what happened on Sunday against Washington. And before that game, they had just upset the Carolina Hurricanes. So this is a team in decent form, and you're not looking for much when you're betting a team at plus 330 on the money line, right? You're not like, it's not going to be resounding, oh man, like this is a banger, but there's just enough in this team right now and in the number to take a shot at plus 330. They are trending somewhat in the right direction over the past little while here. And what we know about Tampa is that this is a team that will pace itself through regular seasons, because while a lot of teams' season in the NHL is 82 games long, Tampa usually goes around 100. So this just could be a little bit of a sleepy spot for Tampa Bay at home against a team that won't give them the night off. And as long as Columbus can keep their form, I think that they actually have a fighting chance here. So it's not a fun one, but it's definitely one I'll be on.
Tampa 1-2 road trip. They've dropped 2 straight, and they're back home against Columbus. So
it's a spot that's tough in the NHL too. You go on a little road trip, and then that first game back is normally a little sleepy. So maybe Columbus catches them here.
Okay, fair enough. I like it. I mean, when you see numbers like that, are you often taking a shot? Like when you see a plus 330 out there?
Yeah, it's usually, I'll see it and I'll just, instead of asking, okay, how can this team lose this game? Because you're going to get a litany of reasons. You'll just flip it on its head and say, like, what are the paths to success here? And right now, for the Blue Jackets, it's just keep playing the way they are. So, and I just think that they have a better chance than this number kind of implies. But yeah, these big numbers are always enticing in the NHL. It's just such a wacky sport.
Yeah. Well, I think, but your point is a good one. You have a couple angles on Columbus playing better. So It's not like you're blindly saying there's plus 330, let's play it. It's no, Columbus has shown signs and more.
Exactly.
So so that's fair. It's just worthy to point out. It's not like
you don't really need to tick that many boxes when you're plus 330, but you tick one or two and I'm in.
Wow. Well, Leboff, you checked every box coming on Green Dot Daily today, and it was it's good to see you, pal. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you more this new year because hockey is now making the turn for a deep second half here.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
All right. Loaded show on this Tuesday, January 10th. As a reminder, we have an account that is dedicated to our show at Green Dot Daily. You can find all of the picks from today's show, including the upcoming weekend in the NFL at Green Dot Daily in the Action Network app. So that's convenient. And if you missed anything from the show, picks are there. No worries. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get a first bet insurance up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. That's it. Our show's over for today on this Tuesday. We're back tomorrow at noon Eastern, live on the app, live on YouTube. For our entire crew behind the scenes, our guests on today's show, Brendan Glasheen signing off. You all have a great night. Best of luck in whatever you play. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. See ya.